Hi, I'm John Bradbury. I'm a partner at the Berkeley Partnership, a consulting firm with offices in London and New York. And I've been asked by Heart of the City to make this short video about how we got started on our net zero journey. So the first thing we did was understand our objectives and scope, and part of that involves understanding the terminology. So having understood the difference between carbon neutral and net zero, we decided that we did want to make a firm commitment to net zero, and we announced that internally within the firm, and we put aside some budget because we knew that a step on the road to net zero would be carbon neutral first through offsetting and then putting in place reduction plans to get to net zero. So we thought an important part of the commitment to that kind of was announcing the commitment within the firm and also putting our money where our mouth is by putting some budget aside to pay for the offsetting that we knew would be an important first step. We decided that we did want to focus on scopes 1, 2 and 3 because as a professional services business, most of the things that we can reduce are in scopes 2 and 3. So we did want to look at that full range. And we had an interesting conversation about whether we only wanted to focus on what we as a firm did or whether we also wanted to kind of take some responsibility for sort of educating, informing and nudging people on the kind of adjacent areas in their personal life that are relevant. So for example, the nature of the power that they use at home when they are working from home, whether they use green energy or not, or even the investments they choose to invest in with their pension plans, how kind of green are those investments. So ultimately we decided that although we will focus on what the firm was doing, we did want to also to play a role in trying to kind of educate and inform and engage people on some of those adjacent areas in their personal life where they could make a difference in their carbon footprint. So having agreed those objectives, we also kind of thought through some key principles. So key principles for us were aim to quickly offset to get to carbon neutral, and then over time work through our reduction plans and efforts to get to net zero. We wanted to make sure we got our own house in order first before going out and speaking to clients and kind of speaking externally about these things. So we wanted to kind of focus on getting to a net zero position in the firm before starting to work with clients. A key principle for us was to engage the firm widely, so not just have a small group of people kind of beavering away in the corner on this, but although we did form a working group to really try and kind of educate and engage the firm as a whole, because part of this is about informing people so that they can all get involved, all gain more awareness and all sort of take action in their personal lives to reduce their carbon footprint. We decided to govern this effort through our existing governance and leadership mechanisms. So we didn't want to set up separate decision-making bodies and governance bodies. We thought it would be more effective if it was integrated into the existing leadership and governance of our firm. And as I mentioned earlier, we decided that although we would focus on what the firm was doing, we did also want to kind of take responsibility for trying to educate and inform people on their personal choices as well. And then lastly, we decided how we were going to structure ourselves, and we set up a total of 5 work streams. Work stream 1 was measure, so looking at what we were going to measure, how we were going to measure it, and making some of the quite difficult choices about, kind of whether you go for a very rough and ready assumption-based measurement or try and take a more accurate approach. So all of that kind of fell under the scope of the measure stream. Reduce, work stream 2. So as you'd expect, that's all about looking at how we're going to reduce, where are we going to reduce, what will be our science-based targets, where we're going to apply those, and what are the kind of specific reduction activities and plans to get us there. Work stream 3 is offset. So that's all about when we, in the interim, particularly when we're kind of carbon neutral rather than net zero, we knew we'd need to do some significant offsetting. So the offset work stream is all about how do we do that? Where do we source it from? How do we do it ethically and effectively? Should we look at carbon removal rather than just offsetting? So all of those, working through all of that was the offset work stream. And then finally, engage is all about how we kind of engage, educate and inform the whole of the firm, not just the working group in these efforts. So that's our kind of change management and communications work stream. The fifth work stream, which we haven't mobilised yet, is client, which is kind of how we engage and start to work with clients externally on these sorts of topics. But as I said, we're going to do that later, once we've kind of drunk our own champagne and hopefully got to a net zero position ourselves. So I hope that helps. That's a brief view of how we got started on our net zero journey.